Hello, everybody. This is Zach Said It Again. I'm your host, Zach Cooley, and I'm honored to be here with nationally renowned stand up comedian Lucas Bohn. He is performing on February the 7th at our beautiful Millwald Theatre in Wytheville, Virginia. Lucas, thank you so much for being with me.
Hey man, I am so happy to be with you, Zach. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me. And you said it, you hit the nail on the head, brother. This is going to be a gut stomping, good time of a show. And I really hope people come out because it's one of my favorite shows to do. And I'm really excited about it, man.
So you're doing a special type of show. You said this is one of your favorite shows to do.
So I do multiple shows, Zach. I am a stand-up comedian. That's probably where I've garnered the most, fame, I guess you would call it, in my career. And about 12 years ago, I started doing cruise ships. And normally, Zach, they make you do a theater show, which means, you're on like day 3. Everybody shows up to the theater every night. 7 and 9 p.m. and they don't know what it is. It could be a singer, it could be a juggler, it could be a comedian. And I've always done very, very well, but the more I started doing international cruises, I realized that the people just show up not because it's you, they just show up because every night there's some form of entertainment in the theater,
Exactly.
And a lot of these people were international cruisers, travelers. So they might be from Japan or Korea or Europe or, South America. English wasn't necessarily their first language. Mm-hmm. And the bad thing with stand-up is you kind of got to know the language that the performer is talking in to fully understand the jokes. Like a lot of comedy is play on words, it's double entendres, it's innuendos, it's sarcasm. And if you don't understand that, it can make, appreciating and enjoying the show difficult. So what I would see what happened was if I did like a European cruise, a third of the audience would discover that I'm a comedian and I'm talking in English. And if English wasn't their first language, they would just get up and leave because they couldn't speak the language. Whereas, like, if it's music or if it's a acrobatic show, like a silk show or a balancing act, you can appreciate that because you're just watching them do it, If it's a song that you recognize the music, you don't necessarily need to understand the words to know the song. You know what I'm saying? So I thought to myself, how can I do a show that would tell a story in a way, because that's essentially what stand-up is. You tell a story, through jokes. You tell a situation through jokes. How do I tell a story that everybody can understand? Children, grandparents, people that don't speak English, people that do speak English. And I got the crazy idea. I watched this comedian. His name is Daniel Tosh. He's very famous. Yes. He had a Comedy Central show called Tosh.0. And one of the things in his show was they would show a photo of something or show a video, and he would just riff on it for 20 seconds. They would show a 30-second video of something, and then he would do stand-up, 20-second little one-liners or tags or something about that. And it was funny, and I thought, you know what? You don't even really need a video to do that. You could show a photo and then do jokes about the photo, and everyone would think it was funny. So I added in a multimedia feature to my stand-up. So what I did was I took the stand-up comedy, I took the joke, and then I added a picture to it. So now I tell the story. If I do a bit about my wife, I show a picture of my wife, Right. If I do a joke about my 3-legged dog, I've got a picture of my 3-legged dog. Exactly. When I talk about adopting my 2 kids, I show a photo of my 2 adopted kids. And overnight, immediately, people would see a photo that was, funny or humorous in nature. And then I would do the stand-up and they'd go, oh, yeah, like that makes sense. That's real. I used to be a school teacher, and the show was called Lesson Plans to Late Night. one of the greatest things is I show examples of student work from my classroom from when I was a teacher. So, like, these people, I'll say, oh, kids are the funniest things. They say crazy stuff. And then I show 5 or 6 examples of student work where kids try to be funny and are funny, And it really resonated with audiences because, you're telling a story, but you're also adding the visual image along with it. And it's just a really, really fun show, man, because, they really like seeing the pictures of my family and the dog and, like, the examples of student work and funny signs that I see while I travel. And all of this fits together because I'm telling a story. And the story is how I went from being a teacher to a nationally touring comedian. And that was always the number one question that people asked me. How'd you do it? What was it like? And so I wrote a story using photos, examples of student work, stories from my life on how to do that. And it's been wildly successful, Zach.
And those kids, God bless them, they are, in a sense, doing the work for you, and you build something around, but it's their line that gets the laugh,
So, 9 times out of 10, I have a bit. I have a bit about being a teacher and, a smart board. And then, I'll show a picture of a smart board. You know what I'm saying? And then, 9 times out of 10, if I'm doing a joke about student work, I will show examples of student work that, like, my kids did when I was a teacher that made me laugh. And that's one of the sections. People say, like, how did you get your sense of humor? And I tell people, I was around 10 and 11-year-olds all day.
Right.
They knew I was a comedian. It was a constant. They would try to one-up anytime I was funny. I had a class full of stand-up comedians in training, They would write silly things on test papers or quizzes or worksheets to see if it could get a reaction out of me. And every teacher, if you've ever worked with kids or if you're a parent or a grandparent, we've all had that one experience where our kids or grandkids said something, did something, turned some work in, and it was absolutely hysterical, And so that, I built on that and then created a show.
And my daughter is 11, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Your daughter's name is Ella. My daughter's name is Bella. So that...
there we go. We actually thought of naming our daughter Bella. But we liked the name Ella so much. So as a nickname growing up, I called her my Ella Bella.
Yeah.
So that was just the nickname. So we called her Ella, but I always called her Ella Bella or Ella Bell. And it's good stuff. Is she in 5th grade now or in 6th grade? Because my daughter's in 6th grade now.
She is in 6th grade, so...
Yep. We got the same age kids, man. That's a lot of fun. Is your daughter, does she care about boys yet or no?
Yes, she is... I would say she's on the brink. She's boy crazy, but she's not to the point where, you doesn't get, she's 11, so.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, my daughter is curious about boys. She wants to, some of her friends have, like, quote unquote boyfriends, and she'll come back and tell me, oh, they broke up today. Oh, they're in love. And I just say, look, they're not in love. This is just, they're just saying they're dating. They don't hold hands. They certainly don't kiss at school. That's not allowed. And they don't go out on dates. They never hang out with each other outside of school. And they don't have dances in middle school. So, like, I don't know how they're dating. But, it's funny because every now and then she'll make a comment and, she said something once. We watched a Paul Walker movie, the actor.
Right.
And she said, Dad, I really like the way he looks with his shirt off. And I said, well, we're done watching this movie.
Exactly.
Let's put on some Paw Patrol. You really liked that Paw Patrol when you were 5 and 6. Let's go back to that.
I very much miss the days of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse so much that I weep. But talking about having kids, I wanted to tell you that our stories are different, but they're very similar, and you'll understand what I mean here shortly. You adopted a baby from, was it Kenya?
So this is what I always tell people. So Ella's mother is African.
Mm-hmm.
She was born in the United States, but for the joke, I just say she is from Kenya, because then I do a Lion King reference, and most people know that the Lion King took place in Africa, and Kenya is in Africa. So there's a little bit of professional fudging that goes along with every joke. I always tell people, jokes are 90% true and 10% exaggration. Okay?
Yeah, I got it.
So again, my daughter is 100% black. Her mom is African. But my daughter is a U.S. citizen. She was born in Maryland, and then we adopted her. But her whole family is from Africa. So there is a grain of truth to that. But again, she's not from the country Kenya. I
got you. Okay, but anyway, the people that respond to you. Particularly the southern white people that respond to you. In my situation, I was born with cerebral palsy and bound to a wheelchair for my entire life. So I was not grown up to expect to be married and have children. And when I got that opportunity, that was just the blessing to end all blessings. When I met Emily, who was my wife, we've been married for 15 years. And then
congratulations, that's awesome.
And then 4 years later, when Bella comes along, that is just, you think you have no more room in your heart to love, and then the child comes, and she's an only child, so she gets everything. But people cannot wrap their brains around the fact that the guy in the wheelchair had the child. My father-in-law said, when my wife called to tell him she was pregnant, he said, "How did that happen?" And I wanted to say, do you remember that video you watched in the 7th grade? The cast may have changed, but the plot is still the same. I mean, just the nerve of some people. And, because I will take my daughter trick-or-treating because my hairline, I'm 40 years old, my hairline is receding, my hair is turning gray, but they will ask me, did you come for a piece of candy? And no, I'm here with my daughter. This is my child right here. They did not bring me out to have candy, And so, with some of the stories that you heard, and then you get to do the Lion King reference, I said, I can relate to that
I always tell people, I was in a Walmart in the town over from where I grew up, okay? Southern Virginia, okay, good people, but again, some of them are still living in 1940, And I'm holding Ella, and we're in the toy section, and she's just looking at toys, okay? She's probably 2 at the time, just turned 2.
Right.
And this guy comes up, and he's kind of looking, and I just knew he was going to say, you know what I'm saying? You just know something. You're like, this guy's going to say something silly. And he said, when did you get her? And he clearly knew that we had adopted her, and there are nicer ways to say it, but he said, when'd you get her? And I just looked right at him. I said, "Oh, we got her on Black Friday."
And he,
with a straight face,
yep.
And he kind of like did like a little shake, and then he kind of grinned.
Yep.
And he even said, he goes, "I probably could have asked that in a nicer way, couldn't I?"
Yep.
And I said, "Well, sir, I'm going to be honest. I could have answered it in a nicer way too." And we all just kind of smiled, and I said, we adopted her about 2 years ago. Her mother, she was born in Maryland. And he said, "Oh, that's beautiful." And I always tell people, it is the greatest gift in the world. I have known people, Zach, that have been very close-minded, and then their son or daughter marries somebody from Mexico or from, or someone who's black or not from their culture or skin tone, and they have a baby, and for, a month or two, it's tumultuous.
Right.
They're people, we're not going to have anything to do with that baby. And the minute the people meet that baby, the world changes. You know what I'm saying?
Or at least
they go, yep, this is my kid. This is my grandbaby.
Or at least
this grandbaby calls me grandpa. You know?
At least it should.
Yes.
For the people that the world doesn't change, and even worse than marrying a person of another race, to have the audacity to have a child with a disabled person. I had people in my wife's family say, "Well, when you have that child, you're basically gonna be a single parent." Excuse me, that is not the case at all.
Yep.
I'm very happy to say that I've worked very hard to be every bit as good of a father as any that stands on their own 2 feet, and better than some for that matter, because I'm involved in my child's life at every level, which is the great joy of mine. And so when I heard those stories, I said, I can really relate to that. And one of the things I wanted to ask you was, how are we lucky enough to get you here, because you've been all over the world? How are we lucky enough to get you in our small town of Wytheville, Virginia? But as it turns out, you're from Southern Virginia yourself.
Yes, sir. I am from a small town called, it's right on the Chesapeake Bay. It's absolutely beautiful. It's called Matthews, Virginia. If you're a Virginian, I guess the closest big place would be like Williamsburg and Yorktown. So we're right on, we're on the Chesapeake. But if you go west, we've got to go across the Monitor and Merrimack Bridge, which is in Gloucester Point. And, then we're in Williamsburg. So, I'm my hometown's about an hour away from Virginia Beach, 40 minutes from Newport News, and I still live in Virginia, buddy. I moved to Northern Virginia. I went to school in South Carolina in college, and got a teaching degree, and got hired in 2005 in Loudoun County. Loudoun County was at the time, and still is, one of the fastest growing counties in the country. A lot of federal workers, a lot of building, a lot of infrastructure, defense contractors, agencies, and they had built something like 16 new schools that year, and they needed to staff them. And I got hired 2 days before the school system started, which wasn't ideal, but I got a job. I packed my little car and I drove up. I didn't even have a place to live. I just knew that I had to show up to work on Tuesday at 7:30 a.m. and it was a Saturday. So I went to my school first. I saw my classroom, and I met a woman who was a teacher at the school, and she goes, "Where are you staying? Where are you staying?" I go, "Oh, I'm just going to get a hotel tonight." And she went, "Oh, no, you're not. Like, my kids are in college, or they're all adults. We got an entire basement. It's got a kitchenette, its own balcony, its own end. Like, you're going to stay with me until you can find a roommate." So I stayed with Susie Guerin and her husband in Sterling, Virginia for about 10 days until they actually helped me find a roommate. until I found a place to stay. And I taught 5th grade for 6 years at Rolling Ridge. That's where I met my wife, Christy. And, so like I say, Virginia is one of the most beautiful states to drive through and one of the best states to perform in, because I honestly tell people it's got a mix of everything. It's got politically, it's got Democrats and Republicans. Financially, it's got rich people, middle class, and lower class people. It's got, you've got people that are tech people. You got people that, work with their hands. They're blue collar people, and that's what I love about comedy, is that my comedy resonates with everybody. This show, Lesson Plans to Late Night, whether you're black or white, old or young, Democrat, Republican, rich, somewhere in the middle, or just getting by, this show will resonate with you, because I hit on topics that we've all experienced. I talk about going to school and meeting the girl of your dreams and getting married and having kids and being a dad and chasing the American dream while you're juggling fatherhood and being a husband and buying a home. And then I talk about COVID, because that happened, and I was a performer and my entire industry shut down overnight. Right. In the middle, we were buying a house that. Yep. We put a down payment on a house February 16th, 2020. And here we go, baby. We're buying a home, and we bought the property. And I'll never forget, I was on a cruise ship on March 12th. I got home, and I remember we landed. I turned my phone on, and they go, "Hey, the Loudoun County has closed schools on Friday because of this coronavirus." And I was like, "Oh, this is going to be great. I get a long weekend with my babies, and my wife. This is going to be good, just home hanging out." And then, 18 months later, because little did I know that it was going to go longer. So, yeah, man, it's one of these shows that were it's stand-up, but it's more than stand-up. I tell a story, and it's a wholesome story. I don't make fun of people. It's not one of those things where I never wanted to create a show that would ostracize people or make people feel like, oh, he's picking on Democrats, or he's picking on Republicans, or, oh, he doesn't like tech people, or, oh, he doesn't like, agricultural farming. No, this is a show that is just, you come in and then you leave feeling good. You go, man, that was a really cool show, man. That was a good show. I feel good. He made me laugh. He told a story. It was, hey, you know what? I can relate to that guy. And that's all comedy is. At the end of the day, it's all about being relatable to your fellow human being. And that's why I created this show. I wanted those people that were walking out of the theater to be able to stay and go, I get him. I don't understand everything that he's saying. It doesn't all make sense, but I get the gist of what he's talking about, and it's a funny and a good show. And so that's why I created it.
And indeed it is.